How we doing, Brad? Maddie. And Megan, you're back. Good to see you again. Alright. Hey, Maddie. Alright. Happy birthday, Stacy. Did you get anything good for your birthday? Alright. Trying to find an article. No, nothing? Well, that's not good. Are you and Noah y'all quarantined? Are you guys... God damn it. I keep getting the shitty connection here. Maybe that'll work. All right. So I've got a couple of articles that I wanted to go over. And the first one is from a website called Weird History. And they've got a which general would win in an all-out war between history's greatest military leaders. And they've got some interesting candidates. And I figured we could play this out a little bit and see where everybody stands. As far as the podcast goes, Badajo is coming. I am slamming and jamming at work, so it's been kind of hectic trying to get everything lined up and finding enough time to write, record, edit, and put it out. But we're getting there. March has been a little bit of a wash for fucking obvious reasons. But it'll be done. The following episode, the one we're working on now, is the First Punic War, the last battle of the First Punic War, the naval battle between Rome and Carthage. This one's fun. I'm excited to get that one done. Kind of doing both, juggling both at the same time. I believe Sunday I'm going to have the whole day off, and if I do, I'll bang out quite a bit of work and try and get Badajo up and then get a good portion of the next episode done so that I can get that out before the end of the month. Let's see. What else? There's a new podcast called Trapped. It's produced by the Australian War Museum and presented by a guy named Tom Trumbull. So if you get the chance, give that a listen. Obviously, if you can, rate and review. Megan, you know that is actually true. Yeah, so give Tom Trumbull a look up on Twitter or rate and review his show, Trapped. It's really good, and I've reached, I emailed him the other day to try and get him on. I'd like to do a little crossover show, or at least have him on here for a little interview, and so that he can promote it. Yeah, so we'll try and get some of those out. What else? We've got... I probably just showed everybody right up my nose there. Let's see. We've got coming up... I think we'll do a episode in April. We've got this book called Sniper. I'm going to do a presentation on snipers through the ages. And I think, because, again, for obvious reasons, at the end of April, I want to do a little live stream episode on the battle to fight polio. I think that might be interesting. A lot of parallels with today's world, so that should be kind of cool for people. If you don't know the story of Jonas Salk and the process that went into fighting polio and trying to eradicate it. So April should be fun. It should be, hopefully, things, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. So if things stay the way they are now, I'm going to work out some system so that I can get more podcast shit done. All right. So the first person that they have on the list is, for obvious reasons, you've got Alexander the Great. According to this website, he was 9-0 in terms of his win-loss ratio. And I believe that's accurate. He had a few pitched battles and a number of sieges, but it wasn't a huge amount, so that's probably somewhere around correct. That's not including small engagements, skirmishes, things like that. So they have him at number 1 and Julius Caesar at number 2. They have him with a 93.7 win-loss record. That's a 15-1. Again, I don't know how much I give credence to that number, because I'm pretty sure that there's, 15, I'm sure that in his lifespan of fighting, Julius Caesar had quite a few more victories than 15, but it's kind of hard. It's a little vague on how they went about, what actually, what defines a battle. They have Napoleon on this list. Yeah, you can absolutely. If you've got something from the Napoleonic era on snipers, that would be cool. I'd be down with that, for sure. Let's see. They've got Napoleon on here at 3, Hannibal at 4. I don't know if I'd put Hannibal that high. Georgy Zhukov at 5 with a perfect 10-0. Again, that's so once you get into like World War II, it's just becomes so much bigger and so much broader. I'm not sure if he he definitely was in control of more than 10 battles throughout the entire war. Would he conquer all challengers? And he's in a... and then they have Ulysses S. Grant at 12-1. I'm not sure I would put Grant in the top 10 generals of all time. Robert E. Lee's at number 7. Again, I think that's kind of a leap. I absolutely agree. To me, Alesia is... I can read about that particular battle 1,000 times and still find it absolutely enthralling. The idea of the circumvallation walls and then the counter walls, the idea of the Roman lines getting thinner and thinner, and a red-cloaked Caesar having to rush to the point of weakness multiple times, being, putting himself in the very thickest fighting and leading from the front. Unbelievable. And then the idea, the tragedy, it's just so dramatic. Side or the non-combatants pushing them out towards the wall, and then the Romans not allowing them through, and then you have these people, these women and children, non-combatants, starving and dying in between the two sides, and Many of them probably have husbands or family members in the city watching this kind of tragedy, this fiasco unfold. It just shows how, I mean, absolutely ruthless ancient warfare could be. I agree 100%. I think Alesia is just situation. The final day, you have all the German reinforcements, or not German, but the Gallic reinforcements coming in, and then they're 200,000 supposedly, and they're sent packing, and that the people in the city, the fighters in the city, would have had to have been incredibly disheartened at that point. I think that's fascinating. I think it's really just so, again, just wonderfully dramatic. And then after the battle is done, you have that incredible scene of Vercingetorix kneeling before Caesar and submitting. Obviously, it's been painted and shown on movies and TV, but it's one of those scenes you'd love to be there, to have been a legionary in the ranks as that's all unfolding, just to see and to witness the moment. I think would have been very, very cool. Well, I mean, obviously not cool, but it would have been just it would have been quite the scene to be a part of. Next up, we have Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington. They have him ranked at 8. And then Erwin Rommel, a little bit of a leap. He's got a win record of 3-6, so 3 wins. They go about that. Would you have been water boy? Yes, I would have been Caesar's water boy. I don't know how they have this at all. George Washington at 10. I mean, I'm a huge fan of George Washington. I've got a little painting of him that my sister got me for Christmas in my office, but I am not sure I would put him in the top 10 all-time generals. And then they've got Takeda Shingen at 11, Frederick the Great at 12. That makes sense. Khalid ibn al-Walid is at 13. And 14, they have Belisarius. Now, Belisarius, I think, is a really interesting character, somebody that we actually present a live stream episode of their own about Belisarius, but he, according to this, again, I don't know how they went about putting the battles together, but he's got a 4-1 win-loss record. So he fought 5 major engagements. I don't know if that gets you into the top 15 all-time generals. Shouldn't be on the list. Absolutely. George Washington, great. I'm a huge fan, like I said, but there's no way he's in the top 15 of all time. I don't even know if George Washington makes the top 100. I got to put this down so you guys aren't getting seasick from the damn shaking. Hold on one. My office is so goddamn janky. Stand for the phone is broken, so that's why you guys are currently leaning up against a copy of J.F.C. Fuller's Military History of the Western World and Max Hastings' Oxford Book of Military Anecdotes. So you're in good company. Byzantine Emperor Cleus would be in my top 15. Yeah, I mean, there's so many possible options for top 15 of all time. Let's actually, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that right now? We took, don't worry. Megan, you're the best. Let's see. I say, I'm going to use the Diggers of Colditz, courtesy of Timmy down in Australia. Thank you again, my friend. As my clipboard, we're going to turn up the music a little bit. And let's rewrite their list of the top 15. So number 1, all-time greatest general in the field, they have Alexander the Great. I don't know. What do we think? What do we think we should do in terms of? Is it just straight up win loss? Is it innovation? We tried to do this last year a little bit, and it was fun, and I think people enjoyed it. But it was hard to keep that content rolling while doing the rest. So I think this is kind of a little bit easier to just come up with a list. So if we say Alexander the First, or Alexander the Great at number 1, I think that's a pretty easy, straight up and down. So I'll put my own vote. And if you guys are responding, what do you think? Does Alexander the Great rank as the number 1 field commander of all time? All right, so Peninsulars will vote for yes. And then, I mean, Gaugamela by itself. So that's how we'll do this. So we'll rank them based on their defining moment, their signature battle, if you will. Alexander at Gaugamela is maybe, if even a quarter of the historic accounts are accurate, it's maybe the greatest single victory in the field of all time, just based on numbers and importance and the decisiveness of it. All right, so CJ says number 3. Knapsack, what do you think? I see you saying he's in the top 3. Give me a definitive answer. Napoleon has a number 1. All right, that's a good one. All right, and CJ has Alex at number 3. So what I'll do is, hey Brett, how you doing? As we go through this, I'll actually create a bracket, and I'll post it, and we can start doing like a little very late March Madness kind of bracket going. So Alexander the Great has 2 votes for number 1. Napoleon has 1. And Knapsack has him at number 3. All right. All right. CJ has Wellington. So what's the CJ? What's the reasoning behind that? I like it. I like the idea of it. Why Wellington at 1? Oh, that's what, you know what? I'm doing this wrong. All of you guys just post up who you think your number 1 general of all time is, and give me a little bit of why. That's how we'll do this better. So number 1 is Alexander Wellington. Oh, good. Well, if you like epic battles in military history, go listen to the podcast too. So Wellington, we got Wellington 1, Alex 2. All right, so number 2 spot, greatest field commander or general of all time. Who do you guys have? Number 2 all time, for me, I would probably have to say Napoleon. And we got 1 vote for Napoleon at number 1. Had great success against a larger opponent with famed strategist. That's a fair point. Ooh, Pedro de Alvarado. That's a good one. We were just talking about Belisarius, but I like that. So Belisarius gets a vote for 1. All right. Failing him brought back to prominence. Absolutely. So number 2, we've got 1 for Napoleon, 1 for... Oh. Slim, I like that. That's again, CJ. You're very. I like it. You've got kind of like an eclectic group here so far, or at least you're bucking trends. Two, Genghis Khan. That's so. This list on this weird history website, I could not believe that they don't have Genghis Khan. They don't have Subadai. They don't have Ogadai. They don't even have Kublai Khan. Like that just seems like a big, I don't know, a giant glaring miscalculation on whoever created this list. I can't imagine not having Genghis Khan in your top 15. So that's for number 2. All right. Winfield Scott. All right, hang on there, Peninsula War. We'll get back to that, so remind me when we get to 5. Let's just stick to number 3 now. So we're moving forward to number 3 all time. Oh, definitely a Eurocentric bias. I think they have one non-European on this, which also it must be an American that made the list because there's absolutely no fucking way you have George Washington and Lee and Grant on the top 15 all time and leave out Genghis Khan or Subadai or all these other possible options. It's a crazy idea to have George Washington in the top 15. All right, so number 3 all time in terms of generals, field commanders. Who do you got? I'm gonna say, for me, it would be Caesar. Who I'm surprised nobody mentioned in the top 2. You'd think, well, I don't know. You guys are a pretty well-read group. I suppose I shouldn't be that shocked. Giscard. Remind me, CJ, where Giscard was he? Was he part of the Crusades? I'm drawing a blank real quick. All right, knapsack. Oh, knapsack. I like that. I like the idea of. I like the idea of maybe blending Alexander and Philip because I really think it's not groundbreaking, but I think the idea of having. I don't think you have Alexander the Great without Philip II. So for me, it seems like maybe mixing the two. I think Peninsular, I believe he's talking about Philip II of Macedon. I would put Caesar as my number 2. All right, Brett, that means Caesar is in there in the number 2 conversation. English to free Normandy and Maine. Okay, was he, so that was 100 Years' War? Sitting Bull 3. Oh, I like that. We got another Slim, General Slim in number 3. I didn't know we had so many General Slim fans. And we've got Sitting Bull. I think that's 2 for Sitting Bull, too. Oh, no, he's just repeating. Gotcha. Sitting Bull's a good one. There's something to be said for some of the smaller... Actually, as I'm researching Budaho, there's very little done or research done on these small field commanders, kind of in the vein of like not skirmishes, but they're just what's the term I'm looking? Unconventional warfare. A lot of these guys were brilliant generals. They're fighting battles with 900 people involved, or 500, or even 200 people involved. But that doesn't mean that their brilliance is any less great than Gorgy Zhukov and his. He's got 1.5 million guys. All right, so number 3, we've gone kind of across the board there. Let's move on to number 4, tribal commanders. Yeah, I'd love to see like a some kind of list where you go through and see a bunch of those guys that you wouldn't even know. Yeah. Who's the other guy I was thinking of? So I was just reading a book. I don't know where it is. It's on King Philip's War. And it's, a lot of these tiny little engagements with 75 people, but man, they were fucking brilliant and brutal and just really, really interesting. That's definitely a war that if you don't know anything about it, get into. All right, so number 4, we've got a Spanish General Lunga. Peninsular, go ahead and give us an idea of where he, what battle he fought, or what battles he fought. I'll put him on the list, but I'm not familiar, so let us know. Anybody else got an idea for number 4? Leaders that fought Mongols in the United Northern India. I can't remember that. Yeah, fuck, what was his name? He pops up on lists every now and then. But again, you don't really see some of these guys. Forrest Caesar because of stupid amount of luck. That's Caesar's famous luck, so I can see that. I still think there's something to be said for Caesar in terms of being a little higher than 4, just because, his speed of both his brilliant mind and his understanding that being faster than everybody else is an advantage in and of itself. Even if, there's that famous, I think it was Napoleon who said that quantity has a quality all its own. Well, Caesar's mentality is speed has a, is speed is force, or, speed matches numbers. He was like all about just acting. When everybody else is thinking about doing something, he would do it, even if he didn't have a fully planned out idea. But you're right. A lot of the times he would act and just get lucky. All right, Santa Anna. That's a first for a list like this. I like that. What's the reasoning behind Santa Anna? All right, cool. Longa is he's on the list in 4. So Santa Anna. What's the reasoning behind having Santa Anna in the top 5 generals of all time? I like it. I'm all about it. I think it's interesting and compelling, but I'm not sure I would put him in the top 5. Other tribes, such as the Germans, made the difference countless times. Yeah. Well, I think that's an underplayed aspect of a lot of your biographies of Caesar. A lot of the books that I've read about Caesar, a lot of the podcasts and whatnot that I've listened to. Not often do you hear much about Caesar's brilliant intelligence network and his ability to gather or collect intelligence and then reduce it down into actionable information. So that's a very good point, Brett. I like that. All right. So we're moving on to number 5. And CJ is going to start us off with Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce. CJ, you're going to have to give us a reason on this one, just because, again, I'm not particularly familiar with him. I've heard the name, I've come across it, but I'm wondering why you have him in the top 5 of all time. I like it. Again, the weirder the better. I'm all for expanding this outside of just your standard Hannibal, Caesar, Alexander, Rommel. Don't get me wrong. I like Rommel. Maybe we'll do a bracket on armor generals, or siege generals and stuff like that. We'll break it down even further. U.S.-Mexico War, yeah. Well, anybody got another 5? Top 5, number 5. All right, knapsack. That's another one for Chief Joseph. I mean, I really can't believe. I don't know who wrote this list. It's crazy to me. Think about this. You've got on this little card. I've already got. I don't know. Tiglath Pileser. Fuck, that's another good one. All right, so Joe, you are not going for Chief Joseph, but you appreciate the selection. Instead, you're going with Tiglath-Pileser. Tiglath is a good one. All right. And we've got our first Charlemagne. Again, like that's what I'm talking about. Charlemagne. They don't even have him on the list, and yet again, number 6 is Grant. That makes no sense. TP3. I like that. TP3. That's some brilliant branding for the Neo-Assyrians. Charlemagne. All right, so for this, let's take it to. We'll go to 8. We'll get our top 8, and then I'll make up little brackets, and then we'll post it and vote over the next couple of days and see what happens for next week. All right, so number 6, who do we got? Anybody have a suggestion for who they would put in the 6th spot on their all-time general list or field commander? That's another thing. Like, I hate to be a dink, but when you have just kind of a vague, open-ended list of top 14 of all time, which I don't understand why 14, that makes no sense, but it's just like there's so many details here. Wow, Brett. Bringing out Dracul. I like it. CJ's got Hal Moore. I'm assuming you've seen We Were Soldiers. What'd you think? Knapsack's going Belisarius. That's a good one. Hey, DeMarco, I love your live streams with you're working on those miniatures. That stuff's awesome. Keep it up. That's really cool. And all of you guys, if you're into miniatures or anything like that, when follow DeMarco, and whenever he goes and posts, he does some awesome stuff. Really cool work. So Hal Moore, we've got a Belisarius, and Karl Donitz. Donitz, that's a new one for a top 8. All right. Trajan, somewhere on the list. Trajan, all right, we'll put that in there. Very good, but also a little Hollywood, not like my dad's. Wow. That would be, I'd love to hear that story at some point. I'm sure it's a fascinating tale. Let's see. Hey, Lenore, how you doing? Yeah, that's interesting. I think We Were Soldiers, I thought it was really, really entertaining. That's the thing about Mel Gibson. I've said it before, probably on here. Maybe not a great guy, but man, he knows he can make a good movie. And I think We Were Soldiers was very entertaining. I think you're right. I think Hollywood can't resist itself and has to try and spice something up that already is pretty well spiced. And that particular story is fascinating. All right, any more 6th spot field commander all time? By the way, I've got some Baxter, Maine beer. Baxter Brewing is right here in Maine. This is their Staycation Land Brilliant Lager. If you guys are ever in Maine or you get the chance, this place is fantastic. We carry them at the lobster store, or the lobster market I work at. And all these long open to close days have kind of made it very nice to have a good cold beer. I figure if you guys are imbibing or enjoying a beer while you watch, let me know what you're drinking. Some new supplier today and got the artillery gun. Oh, cool. I'd love to see it. Definitely post up a picture, and I'll post it on I'll put it on the story, because I love to see stuff like that. It's very cool. And DeMarco, when I start working on once work starts to die down a bit, I've got some Flames of War miniatures that I've got to put together for me and my buddy. We're gonna have a long weekend where we're gonna hit up and play out a couple scenarios. So I'm gonna check in with you to get some help and some advice. Let's see. Tutmosis the Third. Ooh, Modelo. Very nice. I like a good Modelo. Never said no to a good Modelo. What the hell is by Torque Brewing? What's that? Is that the Canadian brewing? Stella. Look, I'm among good company. I figured you guys would be the kind of military historians to crack a beer every now and then. So, cheers, or slancha, skol, whichever you prefer, to Wednesday. Wednesday amid the coronavirus. That's the problem with a beard. Budweiser? All right, I like that, Joe. Very nice. You're a man after my own heart. All right, seven spot. Where are we? Oh, okay. Thomas is cool. That's good to know. Salud, Winnipeg Brew. Fantastic stuff. So, okay, cool. Very cool. Hey, don't knock soda. I would never say no to a nice ice cold root beer. All right. Brett, do they sell in the U.S.? I'll have to look it up. Number 7, we've got Dan Shamron. Okay, I know him, yeah. And we've got Von Moltke, the Elder. It's an important distinction to make. All right. 7 Aquilas. What's that? Aquilas. What, jog my memory on Aquilas there. Von Moltke, Elder. Wow, Satan's Dyke Hole. That's a very interesting handle. Achilles. Okay. Winfield Scott. I like that. That's a good one, Peninsular. Still too small, but growing. Okay. Well, maybe one day I'll get to try it. Von Blucher. Okay. Man, I can't get over how different this is compared to every other list I've ever seen. Italian. My vote is for Cadorna. I'm on. Although I will say we had Caesar, so Cadorna is on the list. I think it's a creative one again. I appreciate these deep cuts. All right, let's round up. Zachary Taylor took the Mexican's task. All right. Zach Taylor, he's on. Now, one of the... or maybe Diaz would be better. Whichever. You know what? I'll put them down both because I like to have that Italian flavor in there. All right, so 8 is going to be the next. Let's say, who do we have for 8? Oh, don't worry about spelling, man. I don't think anybody gives a shit. Or, if you do, then fine, but nobody's going to take you to task on it. Is that a Mexican general? I'm just assuming. I don't want to mispronounce it either, but I'm going to say Cuauhtémoc. Hello, Mom. How are you? Good to see you again. Mom, who's your eighth favorite field commander of all time? And you cannot say George Washington. All right. Kutsov, 1812. That's a good one. Kutsov is the guy with the fake eye, right? Nothing. We are currently writing up a bracket for. I read a list of the top 14 ranked field commanders of all time, and I thought it was kind of a crazy list, so I've been talking with these guys about rewriting our own, and I'm taking on suggestions, and our list is already way, way better. Last Aztec emperor to fight off the Spanish invasion of 1519. Gotcha. Eye patch, eye patch. At the risk of controversy, has anyone said Rommel yet? You know, no one has said Rommel yet, but I'd be interested to find out why you would put him in your top 8. Not that I disagree, I'm not sure he would make it in my top 10. Von Leto Vorbeck, that's a good one. Mackinson's a good one too. I'm surprised nobody said Mannheim. Oh, you don't say. You're a fanboy of the German Imperial Army. No way. I'm going to put Leto Vorbeck because I really like his story is wild. And then Mackinson. All right. All right, we'll go to top 10. How's that? So at 9, let's get to the suggestions for number 9 in the all-time great field commanders list. My friends and I. Some people, I'm fascinated by their handles. I can't figure them out. All right. Number 9 all time. Who do you guys have? All right. Good night, Mom. Oh, Bernadette. Or Bernadotte. Or I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Karl of Sweden's much easier. I think it's interesting. You see Napoleon really high on everybody's list for obvious reasons, but a lot of his marshals are just as talented, or, in some cases, in some ways, they're just as talented. I think he's speed and armor made for a deadly combo. Is he as good as Patton or Bradley? Yes, I would agree. I would think, too, that Rommel had more innate talent than a lot of his contemporaries. I think he had a real grasp and understanding for just battle itself. I think if you gave him a couple of squadrons of Mongolian horsemen, he'd be just as effective and tricky and fast and deadly. I don't think, and this is from doing the podcast, the Battle of El Alamein. I don't think he was a talented strategist as far as commanding as far as being in control of a campaign. I don't think Rommel had quite as much ability as even Montgomery. And I know that's Montgomery's clearly not as popular as Rommel, but I think Montgomery had the ability to plan, conserve resources, gather strength. And Rommel, what you see throughout his desert campaign is just a continuous. Of course, part of it is that he was desperately begging for more material and more men. but there was nothing there. There was nothing to be given. He wasn't able to get it. I wonder what, I love the counter history idea of what would the Eastern Front look like if Rommel had been sent out there. That to me is one of those what if counterfactual history stories that I'd love to read, because I think he probably would have been very, very successful. You really have to wonder what it looks like if you've got Mannheim, Mainstein, and Rommel kind of on either wing of the offensive going into Russia. I think Rommel is one of the more talented men to fight in the Second World War. Obviously, I just don't know if he would break my top 10. Definitely top 25. There's a creativity aspect that Rommel has that I don't think many other modern generals had. I don't think like Bradley. I'm not sure Bradley had the same kind of spontaneous creative mind, or very few did. So he definitely is in that top 25. Rommel had more potential but was limited by the Nazi Party. This is true. He lacked materials and armor for counterattacking the North African resistance. Agreed. I think he had the creativity but lacked the resources. He would have been better off on the Eastern Front. That's fair. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not knocking Rommel. I find everything that I've ever read about him just makes me want to read more, and makes me wish that I had met the man, because he seems like a real incredible character. Has a brain, or had a brain, that worked in a very special way. I just wonder. I don't know. Sometimes I think he gets a lot of accolades because he died, in the way that he died. It's kind of, for me, like, nope, I somehow turned the camera around. Hey, Deb, how you doing? You guys hanging in there? All right, so let's. Weather condition amid the lack of war supplies kept him from winning the campaign at the turn of the war. This is true. The Desert Fox was definitely. I also think he was misused. Weird to put him in charge of the Atlantic Wall. Weird decision there. One of many by Herr Hitler. It just seems like you're one of your most effective field commanders in terms of mobility and speed and movement and movement warfare. You don't anchor him to a static defensive front like the Atlantic Wall. You don't anchor him to defending Normandy. I would probably have had him in a different position there. I vote for Cyrus the Great. I do. I've got Cyrus on here, and I like that. Although Cyrus is a tough one, simply because we have so little information. We know so little about what actually happened. I think there's only like one reference to him, or one written contemporary reference. I'm not sure. I might be screwing that up with somebody else, but I think there's only one reference on like a tomb in Iran that refers to him. But everything else that we know about him is that he's this incredible force of nature who somehow conquers this huge empire by covering all this territory in a time when your fastest, the fastest your army is moving is at the human walk, and it's doing so against a huge variety of peoples and tribes. And he also is I believe it was Cyrus that was the first one to start transplanting populations, or was that the Assyrians? That might have been the Assyrians. But anyhow, Cyrus is a great one. The story goes that the same Nazi state murder. Hey, greetings from Argentina. Very cool. How's Argentina doing? Thanks for joining us. That's awesome. All right. So number 9, we've got Karl of Sweden and Cyrus. Anybody else have a suggestion for number 9 all-time field commanders? We have. Yes. Well, that's. again, Herodotus is writing, I don't know how many hundreds of years after the fact. So for what it's worth, is legit. But I don't know how what it is worth. Although fuck it, we have so little idea of what could have happened that it's almost just as likely that anything that Herodotus wrote down happened as likely as it didn't happen. So I definitely think he Cyrus the Great has to be on a list of top 10 all time just because whatever he did was a big enough deal for us to know about it, 3,000 years later, or whatever it is, 2,500, 2,800 years later. King Leonidas is number 9. All right. Not sure if I agree with that, but I'm putting it down because it's all very up in the air. I'm not sure how I feel about that one, but I'm putting it down. All right. If we've got all the number 9 votes out there, let's move on to number 10. Number 10, all-time great field commanders. Any suggestions? Oh, Jesus, I gotta go find images of all these characters. That could take a while. Actually, I'll put this out to you guys. If you have any good images of the people that you've suggested, or know where to find some of these guys, shoot them over to me. Send a DM with a link or with the image itself so that I don't, because this could take a while. All right. We've got number 10, first suggestion, Attila the Hun. That's another one I'm surprised we're not seeing more of. But he falls into one of those, I think Dan Carlin calls them the historical arsonists. He's one of those. It's hard to really know what he, it's hard to know whether or not it was him commanding that did it, or whether or not it was a function of the weapon system, the evolving political situation, whether or not he was just kind of a right guy at the right time, or if he actually created the change that allowed him to be successful. But I like that. I'm putting Attila down, number 10. Anybody else got a number 10 suggestion? Commander of all time. All right. Yeah, definitely had that psychological warfare stuff down pat. No doubt about that. Archduke Charles, 1809 campaigns against Napoleon. All right, I'll put Archduke Charles down. We've had Rommel, but I'll put him down as well. Nicephorus Phocas. Okay, Phocas is a good one. That's another deep cut. I like this stuff. You don't see Phocas on very many lists. All right. Well, I have my homework. First World War Online. How you doing, man? We'll have to catch up soon. Maybe check in with you and see what you've been up to. And I've got my list of top 10 suggested field commanders of all time. I'll start posting in the stories with the two guys going head to head to see which one ends up in the top spot. And we'll create a bracket. Oh, Guderian, top 10. That's a good one. For 9, okay. All right, guys. Have a good rest of your week. Thanks for hanging out. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Next week we'll come back with more info here. We'll have hopefully maybe a listener presentation to check in on and see what's going on there, and then we will we'll hopefully have a couple of new podcast episodes for you to listen to. So stay healthy and reach out if you need anything or if there's anything you want to talk about. And hope you guys have a good night. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you next week. Oh, Rommel versus Guderian. That's what we should do, is match up these guys head to head and then play it out. I don't know. Hit me up if you have an idea of how we could do that, because have a good night, guys. We'll talk to you soon.